our current strategy is if you get a roof leak during the rainy season, we're going to throw a tarp over it. And then when it's a dry season, we're going to give you a new roof. So that's the fairest way you can approach it. It doesn't give favoritism to a board member or friend or whatever. It's, oh, you got a roof leak? We're going to give you a new roof. We're not going to patch it.
A regular highlight of the HOA Insights podcast is our Board Heroes feature, where we dedicate one episode each month to celebrate the remarkable efforts of HOA board members. To us, a board hero is one of the 2 million elected volunteers who deserve recognition for excelling in a role that often goes unnoticed. Today, we're excited to spotlight one of these exceptional board heroes and share their inspiring story. If you match our definition of a board hero or know someone who does, please reach out to us. Our contact details and those of our sponsors are provided in the show notes.
Welcome back to HOA Insights, Common Sense for Common Areas. I'm Robert Nordlund, and I'm here today for episode number 103 with a special guest, Dave Wojaczynski, another one of the board heroes we're proud to celebrate. I learned of Dave because he's a regular podcast listener who recommended someone else as a board hero, a board member in an area of Los Angeles that just suffered through a dreadful wildfire. Because of her heroic efforts to prepare her association to be fire resistant, they suffered minimal damage. Well, we haven't yet been able to get her on the podcast. I'm sure she'll have a heck of a story to tell once she's through with her wildfire aftermath. But Dave has a remarkable story of his own to share. It's a real treat to have all these people that we can share with you, and it's a real treat to have Dave here today to share his stories. All what we're finding here is that these are just some amazing people with tremendous stories, and again, they're the normal board members that you just see all around you. Well, I hope you enjoyed last week's episode number 102 with regular co-host and insurance expert Kevin Davis discussing how to avoid uneven enforcement of association rules. And that continues to be one of the major sources of breach of fiduciary claims. So we want to help you avoid that problem at your association. If you missed that episode, or any other prior episode, you can find them on our podcast website, hoainsights.org, on your favorite podcast platform, or on our YouTube channel. But better yet, subscribe to the podcast in order to get every episode delivered right to your phone or mobile device. Well, those of you watching on YouTube can see the HOA Insights mug that I have here that I got from our podcast merchandise store, the merch store, which you can browse through from our hoainsights.org website or the link in the show notes. And you'll find we have some specialty items like this for sale and free board member Zoom backgrounds. And as a special promotion, go to the merch store, browse through the items, pick a mug you'd like to have. And if you're the 10th person to email podcast@reservestudy.com with your name, address, mug choice, and mentioning episode 103 mug giveaway, we'll ship it to you free of charge. We enjoy hearing from you, and most episodes are in response to a topic that you've recommended. So stay in contact, letting us know what questions you have or topics that you'd like to hear more about. Leave us a voicemail at 805-203-3130. Leave a comment on the YouTube video, or send us an email at podcast@reservestudy.com. But back to today's episode. Dave Wojaczynski is a board member in a 95-unit condo in Southern California in an area sensitive to wildfires. He's been a board member for over 5 years, but has had some significant recent success in building his association's resistance to wildfires. And it's an important tip that I want to share with our entire audience. So today our guest board hero, as I said, is Dave Wojaczynski from Stony Point of Bear Brand in beautiful Laguna Niguel, California. So Dave, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Robert.
Well, great. Tell me, how long have you been at Stony Point at Bear Brand?
Well, I've owned my unit since 2013, rented it out for a bit, and then my wife and I moved here in 2015. I bought it in 2013.
Okay.
And my wife and I moved here in 2015. So about 10 years living here, 12 years owning.
Tell me a little bit more about the association itself, how old it is, things like that.
Well, our community is about 30 years old. It began construction, I believe, in 1992. So a bit over 30. And as you've mentioned on previous programs, 30 years old is kind of the time when you have to start putting some money back into the place because things just age. Roofs, and our annual budget's around $660K, and we're mostly owner occupied. We got a few rentals, about 25%, but not too many. And our renters are good people just as much as their owners. So we treat them equally.
Yeah. Well, you started as a renter.
Or
Rental owner.
Rental owner, yes. And then we moved into being a resident. We decided to downsize from our larger house after the kids moved out.
Yeah. And you probably said, that's a nice place to live.
It's a great community. It's a great location. We're near the beach. We're near Laguna Beach. We're near San Clemente. We're near San Capistrano. It's just a perfect place to live, in my opinion.
I think you're making a lot of people across the country jealous.
It's I just like living here, and I want to see the community thrive and be maintained.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question. What got you interested in serving on the board, moving from an owner to the board member level of things?
Well, when I first moved here as a full-time resident in 2015, I decided to go to every board meeting without fail. And I just wanted to understand how things worked at the board level, how things got done, or in some cases didn't get done. So I just wanted to be an active participant. I'm retired now. I have plenty of time to dedicate to my volunteer activities, and this was just one of them. Going to every meeting, one of the things I noticed in the beginning was the word tabled got mentioned a lot. It's like, oh, here's this big project. I can't decide what to do. Let's table it to the next meeting. And that happened meeting after meeting after meeting. And finally, I raised my hand and said, I volunteer to help manage this project. I will, go out and whatever the project is, and there were several, and go out and look at, vendors to get quotes. I'll write up a spec for the vendors to quote. My background is the background as an engineer, computer engineer. So I'm very detail oriented. I'm used to managing projects and writing detailed specs for those. And so I brought those skills to the board to help them get things done. And, it got done. I volunteered for a lot of projects and it got them done.
Well, that sounds like just like the progression there. It wasn't any particular crisis that got you onto the board. It was a matter of saying, I own this place, I like living here, and I would like it to be a good place for a long time. Is that kind of what was in your heart?
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
We each have a lot of money invested, so we want to see it protected.
Yeah, you're an owner who cares. I like it now, and I want to still like it in 10 years. Tell me, so you ran for the board, and everything's been hunky-dory since then?
Well, first time I ran, I didn't win the election. It was kind of early into my residence here, so I don't think a lot of people knew me, personally. So just the name recognition wasn't there. But I continued to volunteer for everything I could in the committee-wise, and eventually I got onto the board several years ago and was on the board for 4 years, and then I left for 2 years and then went back on again.
That's an interesting point that you ran for the board, and I bet the board members felt that you would be good because you're there, you're active, you're helping, but you can get 5 board member votes, and that's not going to get you on the board.
I think the lesson learned is if you want to get on the board, sometimes you have to campaign. You have to knock on doors.
What's your current role on the board now? Do you, your position?
Well, in the past, I was vice president role. Now I'm member at large. But the reality is the titles mean little. Whatever position I'm in, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to watch the numbers for the budget. I'm going to manage projects. I'm going to really push the board to get things done. So the titles mean little.
I think I got that from what you said earlier. You're going to be that extra person to be able to add some hours to it and get things done.
The thing I found too is you got to have someone or more than one person on the board that's really pushing to get things done. If you don't push, nothing gets done on an HOA board. It's just, they just kick the can down the road.
Yeah.
So there has to be someone taking the torch and going forward.
Right. Someone who, you use the word campaign for a position on the board. You also need to campaign to get things done. I will take this agenda forward. I will get this project done. If you are just thinking, how can I minimize my time on the board? That's probably not a board member who's going to be successful or an association that's not going to be successful with that caliber of board members.
Yeah, I put a lot of time into the board, and that I can't because I'm retired. I mean, other people who are on the board have full-time jobs and they have limited time, but I have time and I make that available.
Tell me a little bit more. Is it the board who runs the association, or do you have professional management? How's that work at Stony Point at Bear Brand?
We do have a professional manager that, coordinates vendors and getting quotes in and takes care of repairs that are requested by owners and things like that. Of course, we have a 5-member board that approves major expenditures and sets the path forward.
Is the board pretty fixed in these are the 5 that do it, or do you get a few people that rotate on and off over the years?
It depends on the time frame. I mean, we've had time frames where the same members have been on the board for long periods of time. We're probably in a time frame now where some members are going to rotate off and we'll get new ones on at the next election coming up in July. So we'll just see what happens.
And do people serve for our board member terms 1 year or multiple years?
They're 2-year terms. And so we have, 2 that are elected in 1 year and 3 that are elected in the next year. So it's a staggered election.
Overlapping, staggered. I like that. The thing that captivated my interest was your story about minimizing your exposure to wildfire, or in your words, hardening the association. Tell me what alerted you to this being a problem.
About 2 years ago, we had a fire called the Coastal Fire here in Laguna Niguel, and it was only about 2 miles from our location. There was about 20 homes that were lost in this fire. And this fire was a little bit unusual in that it was driven by onshore winds, not offshore winds that we usually have with our Santa Ana winds that happen in Southern California. When something happens so close to you, wonder, boy, this could happen to us. We're close to this area, and what can we do to prevent it? And so I started looking into what really happened in this situation. And this was an area where I had been hiking along the trail in front of these houses several times. And I had noticed that, boy, they seemed to have done everything right. They had that 100 feet of brush clearance in front of their houses. Their houses all had tiled roofs. They had mostly stucco exteriors. How could these things burn down?
Yeah, not like wood siding, wood decks, wood shingle roofs. It wasn't necessarily inviting fire damage.
No, not at all. And these were big homes too. They were $10, $20 million homes that burnt down. So I did some research, and one of the researches that I did was I went on YouTube and looked for videos of the fire. And if you go into YouTube and put in Coastal Fire Laguna Niguel, you can pull these up. But there's one video in particular that was very enlightening. It's about an hour and a half long, so you want to watch the whole thing fine, but you can skip around in it. But one of the things what's clear to me was that every home that burnt down started as an attic fire. You can see a progression of things that happened in the fire. The first thing is the hillside caught on fire, and like I said, the wind was blowing hard that day. But those flames never actually touched the buildings that caught fire. What affected the buildings that caught fire was the embers that were blowing in.
Flowing through the air.
Dirty air. And you can see on the videos like, oh, there's an attic. I can see smoke coming out of it. And this is like an hour or more after the fire is essentially out on the hillside.
So Dave, what you're talking about is wind-driven fire. It's burning the low brush around because the association has cleared up the 100-foot defensible area. And we're not talking about the fire actually flames. We're not talking about walls of flames. We're talking about wind-driven embers floating through the air, the kind of things you feel. You can feel the heat coming, and they are not literally lighting the roof on fire. They're not lighting the stucco on fire, not lighting the decks on fire, but they're getting sucked up into the attic. Is that what we're talking about here?
Exactly. And it's clear from the videos of the Laguna and the Niguel Coastal Fire was that all of the homes that caught on fire were attic fires. They get into the attics through the ember, through the vents in your roof or the vents in your eaves. And the newer standard is to upgrade those to finer mesh vents. And There's also specific types of vents that have chemicals in there that when they get hot, when the air gets hot, it will expand and actually close off the vent to prevent any air from getting in.
When I'm in a commercial building, I see the sprinklers down the hallway or in the meeting rooms or those kinds of things. And my recollection is those are heat-driven openings. And what you're talking about is heat-driven closings. So because otherwise you're going to get these hot embers going into the nice, juicy attic where there's your cardboard boxes, your winter clothes, your exposed 2x4 beams and the insulation, all that kind of very flammable stuff. Oh, gee, the kind of stuff that if it was outside in the backyard, it would be the first thing to catch on fire.
If you can prevent that from happening, you got a darn good chance of surviving a wildfire.
Thank you for that. Let's take a quick break here to hear from one of our generous sponsors, after which we'll be back with more of Dave's story on our HOA Insights podcast episode.
Is your HOA or condo self-managed and you don't want to work as hard volunteering? Are you full managed and looking to save money? Or are you looking to split the accounting from a manager's role for better service? Let Community Financials handle the monthly accounting for you. We collect dues, pay bills, produce financial reports, include portals, and help with other support services, all while providing awesome service. We love the opportunity to help you make your community accounting stress-free with our industry-leading systems and expert team. Visit our website, communityfinancials.com, to learn more.
So Dave, tell me more. So you got this big spark of an idea in your brain. You're the type of person who sees a problem, sees a solution. Do you start talking to the board about what you can possibly do, or where do you actually start going from this idea?
Well, after I got that so-called spark of innovation, right? No pun intended. I put together a presentation for the board. I researched, what are the solutions? How can we upgrade our vents? And there's companies out there that provide retrofit vents for buildings that have already been built. Much like a retrofit window, they just cut out the old vent and put an insert in, and you're upgraded. I put together a presentation, talked about the danger of embers, and everyone sees kind of the landscape around you and thinks that's dangerous. Well, it's you got to manage that, but it's not the primary thing you want to worry about. It's always embers.
Got it.
And so put that together, got quotes, and presented to the board. Vendor came in with a quote, and it turned out to be about $1,000 per unit to upgrade.
Wait. And you're 95 units, so it's $100,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a big expenditure, but compared to watching your home burn down, it's not much. So presented that to the board. They were all enthusiastic. And then over time, they just lost enthusiasm for it. I don't know.
I'm wringing my hands here because right after a tragedy is when you feel the most motivated to prevent a tragedy. And then the further away you get from it, then it's like, we survived this one. Maybe it's not that big a deal. Are there some other workarounds? Is there a plan B?
Well, sort of our plan B now is we're also beginning a re-roofing project. And that's going to be a multi-phase project. It's going to take us 8 years to complete it. And when we re-roof a building, we're going to upgrade the vents at the same time. That's good, but it still leaves you 8 years of exposure.
Okay. Yeah, but gradually less and less and less.
Yeah.
As you move through the project. Okay. I hear stories sometimes about board members getting their house painted first, or their building painted first, or re-roofed first. Is this a situation where you may be inclined to re-roof the houses that are characteristically upwind first?
Well, we've kind of thought about what's the best approach to this. And what we've done before in the past is you get a roof leak, you patch it. And on a 30-year-old complex, that's throwaway money because your roofs need replacing anyway. So our current strategy is if you get a roof leak during the rainy season, we're going to throw a tarp over it. And then when it's the dry season, we're going to give you a new roof. So that's the fairest way you can approach it. It doesn't give favoritism to a board member or friend or whatever. It's, you got a roof leak? We're going to give you a new roof. We're not going to patch it.
Okay, so it's going to be driven by Mother Nature and Father Time saying, this is the early failure, this is the second early failure, and you're going to do early failures first.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, so it's driven by, as you would expect, moisture intrusion, not fire exposure, but the asterisk is you will get some improved fire hardening as you go through this process? Is there a chance that you will squeeze a few extra adjacent building vent systems, or you think that this is going to die in committee?
Well, I'm still pushing very hard to
Okay.
do the whole complex immediately, because it doesn't make much sense to protect only one or two buildings at a time. Because what happens after that building next to you catches fire, then your building will catch fire because the radiant heat from that burning building, not from the embers, but the radiant heat. And so in a closely packed community, unless you protect everyone, you're really protecting no one.
Right. That's a very good point. And we learned from more fires in late 2024 and early 2025 here in the Los Angeles area that fire can move quick and it's nothing to be trifled with.
Oh, it's unstoppable. In a wind-driven fire, it's unstoppable. The fire department can work as hard and bravely as possible, but is really just unstoppable. As I mentioned before, in researching these vent upgrades, I got a referral to someone who had done it before from this company in the Pacific Palisades. And as it turns out, as you mentioned in your introduction, their community actually survived. They were right on the edge of the brush area. And not only did their community survive, everyone downwind of them survived.
Because they were effectively a fire break.
Yes.
Okay, I like leverage. So you're talking about $100,000 can save an entire association, and that's leverage because that's expensive. $100,000, again, I'm rounding up from $95,000 per unit, can save the association next to you. You've just doubled your leverage. This is interesting because it's almost a little lesson in the normal ways boards function, is that a lot of things take time. Is that kind of what it boils down to?
Oh, yes. HOAs move at a glacial pace, and that's kind of an insult to glaciers, actually. You have to be persistent. You can be patient, but be persistent.
Let's talk about board members for a moment. You're a retired, and it sounds like a get it done, I'll take it on type of guy. How would you characterize the board members and the board at your association?
Well, I've served on a couple different boards, so different board members and stuff. So there's always kind of three groupings, I would guess. And, you got the leaders who just want to get there and get things done and maintain the community, and that's their focus. Okay. And you could have other members that are there to help, and but they're the more followers and leaders, and that's not an insult. They're usually agreeable to things that need to be done, and they'll just go along with it. But there's also some people that just they're always reticent to spend money. It's when you're in a big association, you do a big project, you got $100,000 projects, $300,000 projects. And in case of roofings, it's multi-million-dollar projects. So it's hard for people to get their arms around spending that much money. And they tend to be conservative. And it's like, well, let's do a half measure. Let's not do the whole thing. And so you got to get past that roadblock.
Well, I think there's so much of us in our personal life, we are careful how we spend our money. You might be due for a new car to replace your old car, and you go to the car lot and you say, holy moly, that's expensive. And you realize you're not going to get the 4-door version. You're going to get, something smaller or a different brand. And being careful with our money is part of being a human, conserving your resources. But at an association, and that word that I said, that leverage, keeps coming back to me, that you need to spend your money where it's going to do the association the most good. And boy, if you can spend, I sound like a salesman for your next board meeting. If you can spend $100,000 to save your association and the one next to you, that seems like money well spent. Well, hey, tell me, what does guide the board's priorities? It sounds like you have a big roof project coming up in the next few years. But rules, admin stuff, what is the general focus?
Well, I try to focus the board's energy and my energy just on repairs and maintenance. There's always some rules you have to enforce and maintain, but you got to use great discretion with that. quite honestly, I could write up everyone in the community on some little nitpicky rule, including myself. Our speed limit's 15 miles an hour. I'd have probably gone 17 miles an hour.
Oh, you were a scofflaw.
Yes. But you really got to focus on the violations that are affecting other people's enjoyment of the community, not just every little nitpicky thing that you can write people on.
And then you're a 30-year-old association. It has needs. And that probably keeps you busy just right there. So I kind of like you're focusing on maintenance and less on rules.
Yeah, and the reserve plans are a perfect way of saying, what do we need to do this year? What has a 0 years of remaining life? And that should be your guide every year of what you need to do. And you mentioned about buying a car too. I've always, after working with the reserve plans for associates, like all of us should have our own personal reserve plan. Your automobile that you talked about, it's going to need replacing in 8 to 10 years. Why aren't you putting away money every month for that? So we all need to look at it in the same way.
Yeah, it's all a matter of planning. Well, tell me what, from your years being on the board, your challenges facing this project that sounds like a great project, but it's hitting a stall point. If you had a magic wand, what advice would you give to the board members listening here today?
Like I mentioned before, be passionate, be patient, but be persistent.
I like the P's, okay?
Yeah, things don't always get passed in the first round. And, the people's memories of disasters fade quickly. I mean, we just had a major disaster in Los Angeles here, and it's already fading from people's memories here. There's always the thought of, it can't happen here kind of stuff. And
it happened to them, so we're probably okay.
Yeah. Urban wildfires are nothing new. I mean, Rome occurred in 64 AD, London burned down 3 times, the Chicago fire. And each time this happens, we learn something new about how to prevent the next one.
Right. And Notre Dame Cathedral burned down how many years ago? A few years ago. We are not immune to fire. And there's, again, Mother Nature and Father Time are gradually wearing our buildings down. Hey, let's not finish that way. Something uplifting. What's a recent success that you've had on the board?
Recent success is we actually did a big project here of repainting and wood repair. And that was a pretty big project. It was about $300,000. And, once again, it went through the process of getting quotes from vendors, consolidating those into a single spreadsheet so people could see comparisons, and then selecting the vendor and getting it done. And I wrote a very large spec for the vendors to quote on. And so we got apples and apples. The vendors told me, we've never seen a spec like this before in our life. But just another point there is that this was supposed to be done a couple of years ago, and previous boards had kind of pushed it aside. And in those couple of years, a lot of inflation happened.
Right.
A lot of inflation. And had it been done 2 years ago, we probably wouldn't have saved $30,000.
Just because you would have caught it before it got bigger.
Well, and before the cost got bigger. And the cost of saying no to a project, especially in an inflationary environment, is very high.
Very good point. Because if you don't do it this year, it may be 20% higher next year for exactly the same project. Well, Dave, we could speak more about projects, and I would love to speak more about reserves, but we're here to talk about board members and things going on at associations. And we learned today that fires don't happen because the bushes burn your building. It's because of embers, by and large. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on today's program. Any final thoughts to share on your board member experience to share with our audience?
Well, I would recommend it to anyone. It's if you really want to help your community and you're enthusiastic about doing that, run for the board, or at least get on a committee. Committees do wonderful things, and it's kind of a board member and training job. So go ahead and volunteer. If you got the time and the energy, do it.
Or even as you would go to the board meetings and say, I can help with that. So you don't have to go all the way to a board member. You can just be a helper. Well, we want to publicly acknowledge Dave for performing a thankless job well, and compliment the entire board of directors at Stony Point at Bear Brand for taking their responsibility seriously to act in the best interest of their association. We hope you gained some HOA insights from Dave's story today, and that it helps you bring common sense to your common area. And remember, if you match our definition of a board hero or know someone who does, please reach out to us. We love having board heroes on our program. Our contact details are provided in the show notes. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to another great episode next week.
You've been listening to HOA Insights, common sense for common areas. If you like the show and want to support the work that we do, you can do so in a number of ways. The most important thing that you can do is engage in the conversation. Leave a question in the comments section on our YouTube videos. You can also email your questions or voice memos to podcast@reservestudy.com or leave us a voicemail at 805-203-3130. If you gain any insights from the show, please do us a huge favor by sharing the show with other board members that you know. You can also support us by supporting the brands that sponsor this program. Please remember that the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the hosts and guests, with the goal of providing general education about the community association industry. You'll want to consult licensed professionals before making any important decisions. Finally, this podcast was expertly mixed and mastered by Stokelight Video and Marketing. With Stokelight on your team, you'll reach more customers with marketing expertise that inspires action. See the show notes to connect with Stokelight.